Alright, so in this video we're going to have a translation and a discussion of Aeneid, Book 7, lines 803 to 817, and we're going to meet Camilla, who obviously in a later book, Book 11, that we also read in the AP syllabus, we are going to learn about her early days with her dad, Metabus or Metabus, I don't quite know which way how to pronounce it, but oh well, we'll move on with these lines. So starting right away is our gal herself, good old Camilla, as it were. So, beyond these, above these, and so apparently it's been like a parade, as Virgil has been describing it, of all these various different people who are going to be participants in the upcoming war and in Italy. So, in addition to these, beyond these, above these, Camilla from the Volscian race. The Volsci are a tribe that live in and around Latium, as it were. Came, did come, has come. She driving the battle line of equestrians, and this is more like driving as in leading, and the bands, the gangs, the coteries, the crowds, blossoming Florentes with bronze. And so therefore, unlike a girl at prom, that is for my school going to be prom tomorrow, she's going to be blossoming in her hair and her makeup and her dress and all of the other stuff that comes along with it. Here it's going to be blossoming in bronze, because that is what these warriors are all wearing. And then a positive telling us who exactly this Camilla is, a Bellatrix, a woman warrior, as it were, whereas, of course, we all know a man warrior would be a bellator, which her father is going to be referred to as in Book 11. She, known illa, that gal, not having been accustomed to the distaff. This is a staff that one uses in the process of weaving early on to obviously make the fibers into a thread or a twine. And so it's an obvious reference to weaving, as it were. So, not that gal not having been suited, and here, of course, it's going to take a dative object, the distaff or the woven baskets of Minerva. And then here we have what is often referred to as the Greek accusative of respect, but I like to sometimes refer to it as the accusative of the body part, taking the lead from my college professor, Dr. Dix, because most often, not always, it will be a body part, and that is exactly what we see here, with respect to feminine hands. And so she is not doing feminine things with feminine hands, because she is a Bellatrix, but harsh Camilla. To suffer or to endure, I'm sorry, that is not right. Dura here, I think, is modifying proelia. The Virgo is indeed that Camilla. My mistake. But the virgin, accustomed to endure, to suffer, a deponent verb, pati or pati possessum. It looks like a present active infinitive, but it translates actively as a deponent. To endure, to suffer, harsh battles. And she surpasses the winds with the running, with the course of her feet. One of the greatest qualities that you could have on the battlefield is to be swift. In the Iliad, so often Achilles is referred to as swift-footed Achilles, in that you can track down your enemies as they flee before you and obviously overcome them. But nevertheless, we continue on. Here what we have are a sequences of imperfect subjunctives. Now, as an independent use, the imperfect subjunctive, and here we obviously see the pluperfect subjunctive. Imperfect subjunctive, remember, is easily made by taking the present active participle, or not participle, present active infinitive, and simply adding an ending. And to make a pluperfect subjunctive, you add that same ending to a perfect infinitive. And so therefore, what often you have when it is an independent use of a subjunctive imperfect is going to be the potential subjunctive. And that's indeed what we have here. So we're going to use words like might or would. And when we have it as pluperfect potential, we will add the word have, might have, would have. And so, that gal, referring again to Camilla, she would fly through the highest grasses, that's what gramina are, of an untouched grain field. And so she is so fast, it's like she skitters across the top of it. And that means that indeed she doesn't even touch the grain or the grain field because she's almost like walking on air. She flies so quickly. Nor would she have, and again that's a pluperfect subjunctive, harmed from lido, lidere, lysi, lysus, the tender kernels, because of from in, her running, as it were. And so she gets through the grain field so fast, it doesn't even touch the grain and doesn't even harm the kernels. Remember, the way by which that you would harvest said grain is that you, first of all, scythe it, you cut it down, and then you beat the tops of the kernels. And so here's a wheat stalk, and you would have the wheat top just looking like that right there, and all the little kernels of wheat are all in there. So you thresh it out, then you of course have to winnow it to get the husk off, and then at that point you can obviously grind it to make your flour from said grain. But oh well, we indeed move on. And so, so she would do that, and here we again continue with our potential subjunctive with feret, again, a present active infinitive, add an ending, make it imperfect subjunctive, and the same thing with tinguet, or tingueret, as it were. Or, she, having been suspended, like floating is implied, on the swelling wave, she, the swift one. Remember that this word is a third declension adjective of triple termination. That means that its three nominative forms are all different. Keller for the masculine, kelleris for the feminine, and kellere with that fake ending E, just like the feminine has that I like to call it a fake ending in the nominative. So let me do that again. Or, through the middle sea, having been suspended on the swelling wave, she swift would potentially bring her journey, nor would she wet. And what this means is like when a bird wets its beak. It means like dip down into the water. Nor would she wet her feet, her plantas. That literally gives us the word plantar in English. That is going to refer to the bottoms of the feet. If you have ever suffered from plantar warts, you know that that is indeed an incredibly painful experience. Or, as I have experienced before, plantar fasciitis, which is, of course, an inflammation of the, I think it's called the fascia, which is a ligament or tendon of some sort on the arch bottom of your foot. But oh well. And nor would she have wet her feet in the sea, on the sea. And so she's so quick, it's like she can even fly above the water. Kind of like those lizards that we see sometimes that in nature shows have that funny way when you slow it down that are able to walk on water because they are moving so fast. That is exactly what Camilla is like. We continue on of how everybody starting in 8:12 is absolutely overwhelmed by her. And so it says, all the youth, having been poured out, effusa, a perfect passive participle from fundo, fundere, fudi, fusus, and having been poured out from their houses and from their fields, doesn't matter whether it's city folk, town folk, or whether it's country folk, all of them, and the crowd of mothers, having been poured out, they marvel. A deponent verb, miror, mirare, miratusum, and they marvel at that one. She is impressive to everybody. And they watch her, the one going. This, of course, is from eo ire. It's a present active participle. You can see it with that nt and third declension ending. Its nominative would be eanes, but all of the other cases is eunt as its stem, and then your third declension endings. And we are substantizing it to mean Camilla, going. They watch her. They, inhions, gaping, standing agog, with their minds having been astonished. I like to translate it in a more modern colloquial, with their minds blown, as it were. Now, gaping, or astonished, and marveling how. Now, the textbook that we use suggests that what we have here are ut clauses of exclamation that use, of course, subjunctives. I could also see maybe an interpretation, perhaps, of indirect question, But regardless, each of these uts that are here are going to be introducing clauses governed by a subjunctive verb, and instead of translating the uts as that or so that, another translation that we can have, especially if we do interpret it as an exclamatory clause, we will translate them as how. And so, marveling at that one, how the royal honor, and then welet, not to be confused with wolet or wolare, as it were. It is going to be the verb that means to cover, as it happens. And so, how the royal honor covers her light shoulders with purple. Excuse me. And just a word as well. Remember, you've got that verb, which is wolare. And then you also have welare, which is this one right here, and there you can see the vowel. We fear giant liar. The E in a first conjugation verb makes for a present subjunctive, and that's exactly what we see. And also be aware, obviously, of the irregular wele, which has its own forms that needs to be memorized because it is irregular and doesn't follow the pattern. And so, they marvel at that gal. How the royal honor covers her light shoulders with purple. She's dressed in, of course, royal kind of drapery or insignia. Or how a brooch connects her hair with gold. And so, in my class, we just call it simply a golden beret is she wearing, a golden hair tie. And so, the hair tie, the brooch, connects her hair with gold, and they marvel at how, again, this ut, she herself wears. This verb is third conjugation, as is this verb right here, gerere, internectore, and so here the A is we fear a giant liar, we fear a giant liar. And by those of you who don't know what any of that means, it is an easy way to remember all of the vowels that will appear in a subjunctive verb. First conjugation, the vowel E, we. Second conjugation, ea. Third conjugation, a. Third io, ia. And then fourth conjugation, ia. So if you can remember the phrase, we fear a giant liar, those are the vowels that indicate the first conjugation, subjunctive, second, third io, and fourth. And so that's what we see with all three of these verbs. Nevertheless, how she herself wears the Lycian quiver, and she wears the pastoral myrtle, and this is a particular kind of staff, a pastoral kind of like a shepherd's staff, with a spear point, with a cuspide, having been attached to it, having been fixed to it. So she has turned the shepherd's staff into an implement of war. And she is as an impressive, seemingly warrior as was Turnus before. And so we'll learn much more about her, obviously, in the next book that we will be reading, which is book 11. Thanks, and keep studying.